Hi, welcome to this week's Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. I'm excited. I've got debut Dragonblade author Maggie Sims. She's not a debut author, but this is her Dragonblade debut. So I'm really excited to have a chance to talk to you, Maggie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this.
Thanks for taking the time. So Maggie's book launched on Wednesday this week, and it's Lion's Lover. And it's a Lion's Den book, obviously. Maggie, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, yeah. So yes, I'm new to Dragonblade as an author, but not new to either the Lion's Den world or to Dragonblade as a reader. So this has been a very exciting experience, and I look forward to moving forward with it. So Lion's Lover. So I did read a number of Lion's Den books to make sure that mine was kind of in keeping, and I wasn't going to make Bessie look completely different from everybody else. And so, but you guys gave me the perfect framework to work from. And so my hero and heroine are Luke or Lion and Belle, and my readers met them in the book before this, but not a Dragonblade book. And so, but only briefly. They were the best friends of each of the hero and the heroine in that book. So, and he was hungover and did not make a good impression on her, and is just this young wastrel, right? So this book opens with Belle having already retired from being a courtesan and wanting to get out of London and away from her past clients, and to actually finally have a life and marry and have kids and have a home, and so she, with her courtesan connections, of course knows who to go to for that, right? So Bessie de Leon will find her the right match for her. And in the meantime, Luke is a university dropout. He's a gambler. He's a drunkard.
Wastrel.
Yeah, he is a wastrel, and of course he's a lordling. What I call a lordling. He's the heir to the Earl of Northumberland. So he's found Lion's Den because he likes the quality of the liquor, and he likes the variety of the bets. And so he's dragging his friends there as much as he can, and of course he inevitably goes beyond what I envision as the roped off area to the more extreme bets, and loses. And so he gets dragged up into a meeting with Bessie and Belle in the room, and they recognize each other, and none too pleased to see each other. But Bessie informs Belle that part of her payment for matchmaking services is to help Luke get straight. So kind of dry him out, stand him on his own 2 feet, remind him.
Heavy lift.
It is, yeah. I hate to think what the other part of the fee was, right? So she takes him home, and she gives him a combination of tough love and some encouragement. And of course, over the fortnight or so that that he's drying out, they get to know each other. So he learns about her background in poverty, and how she became a courtesan, and her family history. She learns about his family history, his mom dying when he was 12, his dad being very closed off and stern and sending him away to school. And so a lot of his acting out has been in reaction to that. And so she encourages him to kind of find a passion, right? Whether it's, something he will do with his earldom or something he can do now while he has a lot of free time on his hands, but whether it's a hobby or a job or whatever. And he starts to kind of figure that out. And so once he's on the right path, they go back to Bessie and say, here he is, take him now, figure me out, right? And find me my match. And Bessie, of course, is like, you're looking at him. So, and Belle is like, no, this can't be. And come to find out, she is very loath to tarnish his good name with her reputation, because now she cares about him. And then she starts rethinking whether she belongs with a titled lord at all, and she has this whole like, I'm not good enough, even though she's put on this brave face and she comes across as this strong woman. She's like harboring this secret fear. So Bessie sends them home back to her house and says, take a couple weeks and figure things out. And so they figure some things out, but mostly that's horizontal. And so then there's a surprise twist that comes out one night, surprise information that twists the whole story on its head, and that I'm not going to share. And so they separate, and he goes and starts working on his passion, and she wallows in misery because she loves him, but she's trying to do the right thing for him. And he gets called home to his stern father in Northumberland for Christmas. So he journeys north for Christmas. But finally, Belle's friend from the previous book, Charlotte, who is a countess, and has been her friend for a long time when she was a courtesan. And she convinces Belle that she's worthy of any man, that, there were a bunch of men going through her house, like, and they're sitting in the House of Lords, not feeling any remorse whatsoever. What the heck are you doing blaming yourself for something? And so
I love that.
Yeah. So she's like, go after him. So Belle finally decides to go after him. And so she ends up in the cold of Northumberland, far from the London, the party scene of London that she's used to. And she has a couple conversations with him. She tries to help him with his father. And turns out his father has another thing going on. And there's a whole Christmas happy ending. So,
okay, you had said something in the blurb about it taking a Christmas miracle, and I thought what a lovely, timely,
Yes. So when I signed up, and it was either, I think, January or December that were open, and I wasn't quite ready to like write that fast for January 2024. So I chose December, and I was like, well, I am going to make it. It's not a holiday romance because the whole thing goes over two to 3 months. But I'm going to end it at Christmas so that we have a little bit of a Christmas tie-in. And of course, that should help sales and everything else. But like, that's why even on the cover, there's a little bit of Christmas holly and Christmas.
Yep, I saw the holly.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I'm getting tons of fun compliments on my cover. And I will say, like, I didn't do anything different than I did with past cover artists. And they've always been patient with me and worked with me. But like, I sent my little description in author language, not graphic designer language or cover artist language, over. And this cover came back and I didn't touch it. I was like, this is amazing. This is exactly what I want. Yeah, and I just do not stop getting compliments on it. I'm so impressed and excited by it.
Yeah, Dara is magic. It's one of the fun things to see when we have new pre-orders go up. I get to see that. That's when I get to see the covers for the books.
Okay,
it's exciting to see what they are. She's just magic.
Yeah, she did good. So yeah.
You said you read a little bit in the Lion's Den series before you started writing. What was it like to write in a connected world? Did you feel constrained by it, or were there parts about having that structure that made it more interesting?
So I found it to be the perfect amount of framework. I've talked to other people who have talked about doing an anthology or a connected world as indie authors. There are some out there, in particular in Historom. And some of them, they say, are too loose. It's all about like a necklace that changes hands or something, right? Or it's all about one masquerade ball or something like that. And then some of them are too restrictive for folks. Like if somebody didn't want to do titled lords and ladies, right? Like obviously Belle is not as farthest thing from a titled person. So this gave us a lot of freedom, but it also created a common enough thread that we could, use it as much as we wanted or as little as we wanted within reason, obviously. It also gave us a long time frame so that I know some of the authors were writing a little bit later in the 1830s. And I'm writing. This one was set in 1817. So I loved this. This is my first connected world, and I had already had the idea of Belle and Luke together, but I really had no idea how to make it happen. And Bessie was like the perfect person to make this happen.
Because figuring out how to turn a courtesan into a lady is not that's not an insignificant lift. That's a
right, and how to get her over her, condemnation of him as this wastrel lordling, right?
Yeah.
And the age difference and everything else. So
yeah. It was interesting that you said that she encouraged him to find a passion, because I think we underestimate how important a purpose is to a person. And I know we have quite a few series that are like second sons, or the sons that are kind of like wasting time just because they don't have a reason not to.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real purpose.
Right.
So it's
I mean, I think it helped me bridge the class, the age gap, and even like I've never done a forced proximity. I never imagined that I would be able to, and this kind of gave me a unique take on that by Bessie ordering it. So I loved it. I can't say enough good things about it.
Fun. Well, we're very excited to read it, and we're very excited for your Dragonblade debut. Since it's the first time that you and I talked, I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about writing. I know we talked a little bit off camera, and you talked about sprinting with other writers. Do you have a strict schedule that you hold to? Do you write better in the mornings, better in the evenings?
I definitely don't do anything better in the evenings other than drink wine. I cook marginally, but So I try to write. There's an every weekday sprint, a Monday to Friday sprint that's West Coast based, so it's kind of in the middle of my day. So I try to arrange my days around it. So I'll go work out before it, or I'll run errands after it, as many days of the week as I can, so that I'm on that, because I do find I write more when I have the accountability of a sprint.
Yeah.
And and then more recently, a writer group that I'm in, it has early morning, just half hour before people go to work. So it's quite early. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning for me. It's 6 for a lot of people on that call. And so that will sometimes get the juices flowing. So even if I'm not as productive in that half hour as I would be, if it was later in the day, it gets my brain back into the world that I'm writing in, or editing in, or whatevering in, and outlining whatever. And so I'm much more productive in the later sprints. So
it kind of sets you up for your day.
Yeah. So, people who are like, half hour, I'm not going to get anything done. I'm barely going to get 300 words. Doesn't matter. It gets your brain thinking. So for writers, for the authors out there, since we're all readers as well, and I know some authors will be listening. So.
Yeah, I think I always think it's interesting how much more productive you can be if you're writing alongside other people for no discernible reason. I mean, it's hard to explain to somebody, but there's something about having that mindset and having that time period and having that structure that
Agreed.
I don't know, keeps you
Agreed. Although a few of us tend to be a little chattier than others, and so sometimes the other ones give us dirty looks like, "Hey, we're here to write." So.
Do you write in an office, or do you go outside of your home to write?
If this was before COVID, and before COVID, I was working a day job, so I wasn't writing nearly as much. But if it was before COVID, I'd be like, I'm all over town. And now I've become a little bit more of a hermit, so I tend to just stay home. I also live kind of far from things. I live a little bit out in the country, outside of Austin, Texas, and so I, it's a time sap. So then it's a trade-off. Like, am I going to sit here and end up not being productive because I have the distractions around me of home, or am I going to invest the time to drive somewhere and wait and lose that time? So mostly I'm at home, but I will do some in-person writing sprints with a couple friends of mine.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, in the area, including Cecilia Renee, who has just signed a contract with Dragonblade. I think her books don't come out until 2027, but she's already kind of got, obviously the series summary together, but already starting to think about what she's going to do with them. So
Fun. So are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker?
Yes.
Ah!
I was a tea drinker my whole life because my mom's British. And then I met my husband who drank like $50 worth of Starbucks every week. And I was like, dude, no. And so I bought Starbucks stock that has split 4 times since then. My background is in finance from my corporate life. And so I was like, all right, we're going to get our money back for this, right? For your coffee habit. And I also actually made him buy a coffee pot for the house and like use that. This thing before we were married. And, but then he kind of, Starbucks is like the gateway drug for coffee because they have all those like frappuccinos and caramel lattes and blah, blah, blah. And so I became a coffee drinker as well. So
It's funny.
1-on-1.
I watched my oldest son do that. He's like, he started going to Starbucks, and then the next thing you know, he's got a French press, and you have to bloom the beans, and you have to.
Oh gosh!
And I just want my coffee,
right.
I just want my coffee.
But I do some of that. Not like I'm not an aficionado. I'm just a huge wine enthusiast. But I do some of that with wine. So I can't, like, if somebody's not a wine lover, but they're a coffee lover and they consider themselves like able to tell the difference, I'm not gonna rain on their parade.
Well, and there's something about the ritual too. Like I think we as human creatures like a certain sense of ritual, and there is something about the ritual. That's the same. One of the reasons I asked the question is because I think when you write, you have certain things or most people have certain things that they do, certain ways that they sit, certain places they sit. It's like if I don't have a cup of coffee next to me, I reach for it anyway. Because I'm so conditioned to think that it's there. So I think that I know Alexa asked and lights a candle before she starts.
Interesting.
There are different things I think that everybody kind of into.
I have heard that a lot from other authors. My only thing that I always have next to me is water, because I just try to drink a lot of water over the course of a day. And if something's next to me, I will pick it up and drink from it. And so if it's coffee, that's bad, right? But sorry for me.
But it is.
So, and I don't necessarily, I can't drink caffeine beyond a certain time of day, whereas water is all day, every day. So, but other than that, I don't have a lot. I can work anywhere. I prefer 2 screens. So that's why I sit at my desk a lot. And it's probably also a factor in not going elsewhere to work. But I have a mess sometimes. I have a neat desk sometimes. I'm pretty flexible. I'm pretty focused. Once I get the screen open to Scrivener and I actually start to write or outline.
So you write in Scrivener?
I do use Scrivener, yes. So I really like it because I can move scenes around. I can at a glance to the left to look at, okay, when was the last sex scene? I can't put another one in yet because that's what my go-to is. When I'm stuck, I'll just write a sex scene. And some of my friends are like, I hate writing those. I just put insert sex scene and I move on and I have to come back and fill them in. I'm like, no, those are the best way to diffuse an argument or whatever, as long as there's emotion involved, or take the people to the next step or whatever it might be. But, so I kind of keep my pacing overall for the whole plot. I joke about just the sexing, but for the whole plot, I keep my pacing in that left margin that way with Scrivener. So
you talked about the characters for this, and I know this one is a little bit different than a standalone or a different series because it's interconnected. But do you normally get plot ideas first, or do you get characters first? Which comes first to you?
So when I'm starting a new series, trying to think. Well, I've learned the hard way that I need to start with a trope and to some extent a personality type to see where the two are going to come together easily or be attracted to each other, I guess, and what's going to keep them apart. And then how they're going to get around that to bring them back together. So the trope and the personality type is where I start. and then I build the age and the characters and the plot from there. And I think I go to characters next, because basically the trope and the personality types will lead me to the goal, motivation, and conflict kind of outlining, right, of each character, and just that the conflict that stops them from getting to each of their goals, will then lead into the conflict between the characters that will stop them being together. So I start there, then I outline, and then I write, and I try to just write, and then more heavily edit, like a couple rounds of edits rather than just one, because I just write, and I'll go off the rails sometimes and have to bring it back in.
So you wait until the draft is done before you go back and do edits?
Yeah. I have several friends who do it differently. They'll edit what they've written the day before, or even just, go back every other day or every other week. And I can't even go back as soon as I've finished a draft. I have to let it sit for a week at least, really ideally more, to get perspective on it. So
yeah, I think that's an important thing, because some of it stays in your head, and then you fill in the blanks that shouldn't be filled in.
Yes. Or you skip the things that are in your head, but they're not actually on the page. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, everybody's brain works differently. So like I have friends that are very successful that do it, day by day. So,
One of the most interesting things about doing these chats for me is getting to hear other people's processes,
Yeah.
because I think everybody does, like everybody works at it differently. Some people do multi-page outlines, and some people just have a few scenes in their head and start moving and hope for the best. So
right. Well, I know a lot of authors have like small planner addictions, right? Where they like to have,
because they're so pretty. There's tape and stickers, and like, when do you get to do that as a grown-up?
Washi tape and all that, right? So, is that a fun thing for you as well?
No, but I love the idea of it.
Oh, okay. That's it for me. I'm like
for me, but
for me, like, first of all, if I'm staring at a computer screen, I need stuff to pop up on a computer screen to remind me like what I'm supposed to be doing, like if I'm not doing it. Second, I'm not going to look at a paper calendar. But second of all, I'm like, if you have so much time to make things pretty with washi tape, why aren't you writing more? Like, and that's just me, right? And that's just because I get waylaid with different things, right? And so, and that sort of thing doesn't soothe my soul. It's very pretty, but it doesn't soothe my soul. I'd much rather go read one of my friends' books, right, and write them a review. And so, but everybody has something different that soothes their soul. And so I, like the candle thing sounds fabulous, but I would never remember to do that. I just want to sit down and start writing. And I'm like, I think it's the business background.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a certain amount of sense. Yeah. And I think some of it is just like, you have to, as a writer, you have to respect your process. You can try and force yourself into other situations, but it's not yours. You have to respect what is your process for doing it.
Yeah. And I don't get as much writing done as a lot of my friends. So it's not like I can really say, oh, that's time away from writing. It's just me doing other things. Basically.
What made you decide to write historical?
Well, I'm of an age, right, where some of the early romances that I read were historical. So of course I started, with the purple covered silhouette books and the white covered Harlequin Presents, I want to say it is, books way back when it was Ann Mather and the original few writing over in America. And then, the first full-length romances that I could lay my hands on were the, Johanna Lindsay and Jude Devereux and the Kathleen Woodowitz, right, for a different type of historical and things like that. So, and I fell in love with those. But also, my mom is British. Like, she came over to New York when she was 19 or 20 and married an American, which is why I grew up here. But my whole mom's side of the family is over in England, and I've been going over there since I was 18 months old. And so I have pretty strong ties. So that combination, I think, really kind of, and the fact that, as a later writer of Regency in particular. I think some of the Victorian authors, I give them a lot more credit for having to differentiate their world, right?
Mhm.
Because so many of us have been reading Regency for decades, and it's like, well, wait, what, what are the, oh,
Where's the line? Yeah.
yeah, like what is the, what is the style of dress even, right? And what are they, oh, they have, plumbing and indoor plumbing and stuff like, and then but also like the social mores are so different, so buttoned up on the outside and so crazy on the inside, whereas the Regency, it all hung out, right? The craziness was out there. And so but for me as a debut author, like way back 2022, I guess, not way back, it was like, oh, I have a little smidgen less world building to do because the Regency is familiar to readers. So like for instance, paranormal romance or romantasy, like that blows my mind as a writer. As a reader, love it, right? Happy to read it. As a writer, I could not world build like that. So it's very impressive to me. So I was kind of trying to take the baby steps. And of course, for contemporary, I'm of an age where I'm like, I don't know the lingo. Are they texting still, or are they doing something else? Like, what are the apps?
Snapchat, baby. It's Snapchat.
Right? I wouldn't be able to pick Snapchat out of a lineup. So yeah. So that being said, I am going to try a contemporary at some point, but like I probably not as Maggie Sims, under a different name, but yeah, I just like dipping my toe in the water. This felt the most comfortable somehow, and yet there's a ton of research to be done, right? And
do you find yourself doing a lot of research?
I find myself doing just enough to get by, frankly. So if you talk to a lot of the other authors, Tracy Sumner wrote for you guys for the Lion's Den, and she will get into the neighborhoods, and she will get into these very specific jobs for both the men and women in her books. Catherine Grant does a whole like TikTok series. She has a separate profile on historical, romance research, and she does like a separate newsletter about it and things like that. So these are the experts that I go to help point me in the right direction if I need to, but I tend to do just enough to get by. It's just like with the world building, I do just enough to get by, because to me it's about the story, it's about the love story and the characters.
Yeah, the setting is a construct for that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Maggie, it's been delightful getting to know you, and it's been wonderful having a chance to talk to you today. I'm very excited about your Lion's Den book. I'll make sure I put the link in the comments, so if you haven't gotten it yet, you can grab it. Mary Lancaster also has a release this week and wasn't able to join us, so I'll make sure I put the link in her book in the comments, and we'll catch up with her in another week because I want to talk about that series. It's brand new.
Yeah, I would have been really interested to talk to her about the series, and also like I heard from her accent that she's from the North, and I'm pretty sure. And so I just wondered if she was like, in Northumberland, for instance, or something like that, where my book ended up. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about her new series as well, because I've seen some of hers in the past. So yeah,
we will catch up with that, and we will we'll learn about the Silver and the Gray, the first book in the Silver and the Gray, and it's Murder in Moonlight. So it's a slow burn historical mystery series. So we're very excited about that one too.
Nice. So. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.